Hi everyone. As promised, I'm going to walk you through a very simple CRUD activity. And remember, CRUD stands for Create, Read, Update, and Delete. So what we have here is I have a PHP page that is connected to a MySQL database. And this is a very basic page listing the records in my department table. So what I have 4 fields in there: department ID, which is the primary key, the department name, just some random number of employees, and building number. And that is attached here to my department table. There's all the records that you see in my table, and here is the structure for my table. So I don't even have like any create date or anything like that. So what I want to do is, this list here stands for the R in CRUD, read. Okay, so this is reading a list of the departments from my database, but what I want to do is I want to build out what I consider the most complex of the CRUD is going to be the update or the edit of this information. So let's say I want to call graphic design something like digital design. I want to be able to change that department name, but I don't want to give anyone access to my PHP, my admin, or my live data in my database. So what I want to do is I want to build some sort of administrative tool that will allow me to let certain people with the correct credentials come in here and maintain my data by being able to edit it. So what I want to do is I want to start with this list of departments page, and I want to create the option to edit these individually. So in order to do that, I need to add, I'm going to again keep this very simple. I'm going to add a little edit hyperlink that is going to pass the primary key through the hyperlink as a get variable, and that's going to be coming up through the URL. And then once that variable, so if I want to edit this graphic design department, I'm going to pass over the department ID of 4, which will tell the next page search for the ID, the department ID of 4, and retrieve that information. The other thing that I want to do to this page is I want to add a new field, and I'm going to call it status. And what that is going to do is it's going to act as my D in my CRUD, my delete. So I am of a big belief that we don't delete data, especially as our database system grows and data can be functioning as dependent on other relationships in the database. So let's say I have an employee who's assigned to the magical powers department here. If I was to delete the magical powers department in its entirety and not replace it with something, then what would happen to that relationship with the employee that is assigned to this department? So what I like to do is I like to inactivate my records instead of delete them, so that I can still have that information there. It's just not showing as something that will be able to be used to assign to other people. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to create that status field, and so I'm going to do that through PHP my admin. I'm looking at my actual table department, and I'm on the structure tab, and at the bottom of the list is add one column after building number. So I can decide where I want to put it. I'm going to go ahead and put it after building number, and I'm just going to call it status, and this is going to become a character field. So here is my string character of length 1, because all I'm going to do in here is I'm going to put like an A for active, and I'm going to put an I for inactive, and maybe in the future there might be some other reason that I would want to add another option, but for now I'm just thinking A and I. And then I want to change the default value of this to as defined, and I'm going to put it as an A. It's a string, so I'm going to put it in quotation marks. And what this is going to do, once I save this, it will go ahead and apply an A to every single record that's currently in here. In addition, it will default any new records also being A. So I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to go, oh, what does it say? Invalid default value for status. Oh, hold on. Let me check here. Maybe I don't need those quotation marks. Let's see. Okay, so because it is already knows it's a string, it will add those quotation marks for me. So thank you, PHP my admin, for making it so that I didn't have a problem here. Okay, so again, here is that status field with those default values of A. If I come back to my department list and I refresh, nothing is going to change because I first need to include that field in my department list. So that's the first step that I'm going to take, is I'm going to add that status list here, and then I'm going to build out that edit hyperlink. So if you want to work along with me on this, go ahead and get your code editor set up and maybe log into PHP my admin and make that change on your table as well. Okay, here I am with my code for listdepartments.php. Again, that corresponds to this page. And I'm going to go ahead and take a look at what I have here so far. So I've got my database connection that is included in the MySQL connect.php file. And here is my query, select asterisk from department, order by department name, so that they're coming through alphabetically. Yes, they are. Looks good. And because I'm doing select asterisk, that means select all fields. So I don't need to make any changes to that query. The only thing I need to make change to is to this table and rows. So this first line is building the heading. So there's the building number. And then I'm going to go ahead and add another TD. And I'm going to call it status. And close that TD. And then I'm going to take a look at my line of code here. And sorry I don't have a better view for you. I'm doing word wrapping, so this is as large of a window as I can get right now. So I've got the building number, and then I'm concatenating it with, oops, undo that. Okay, I'll know not to place my mouse in weird locations and click. Okay, so I've got my number of employees, my row building number, and then I'm concatenating it with a closing TD and a closing TR. I want to do a closing TD and then an opening TD so that I can add one more concatenation here. So I'm basically following the same exact line of table data as I have prior to that. I'm going to put my period for concatenation. I'm going to reference the array row, and this is now going to be status. Close that square bracket out, and now I'm going to concatenate again and open up a quotation mark, close that TD, and close that table row. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. That should update here. And let me go to my list of departments. And here we go with our status showing A on all of them. So what I want to do is my next step, I want to build that hyperlink. So again, you can do this in any way that makes logical sense to you. Perhaps I want to create the hyperlink on the department ID. I mean, that's kind of small, so probably not the best bet. Maybe I want to put it on the name. Maybe I want to add a whole nother column that says edit next to it. So whatever works for you, is fine. Think about the user experience. Think about how that might work for the person using the system and decide to build that out. Okay, so I've decided I'm just going to go ahead and add a new table data, and I'm going to start up here. I'm going to put this right next to my status, and I'm just going to put actions. And then be very, very careful with this next bit. Okay, so I'm going to put this at the end. I've already got my closing TD and TR, but I do need to build out my hyperlink for that. So I'm going to start here before this last concatenation, and I'm going to build this out. So what I want to do is I want to create another TD. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in here, and then I'll break it apart. So I want it to say TD, closing TD, with a hyperlink that says ahref equals, oh, can't use those double quotations because I'm inside of double quotations. So I'm going to use a single quotation for my attribute. I want this to take me to a new page called Edit Department. So Edit Department.php, and then I'm going to pass it a get variable. And what you want to do to pass the get variable is the very first variable in the list. So you can pass multiple variables, but it's going to start with a question mark. Okay, so question mark and then the name of the variable. I don't necessarily want to have department ID as the entire name, so I'm just going to put ID equals, and then I need to have this replaced with row department ID, but I'm going to have to concatenate that in here. So let me go ahead and think about how I want to do this. This is going to be a number, so I don't need to put it in any kind of quotation. So I'm going to close out this little section here, concatenate, and then I'm going to grab the row department ID again, and that's going to fill in my number, and then I have to concatenate again and go back into my quotation. Now I need to do the end of my hyperlink. So this is where it gets a little complicated, just because you have to keep going back and forth here. So I've got my ID, and then this is technically the end of my href. So I need to close that URL with a single quotation and close my A tag, and then I'm going to put the word edit in here, and I'm going to close that A tag again. Okay, now let me see what I have here, because I seem to have a problem. So I've got my TD, my status. So right here I have an opening TD, but here I have two closing. So I need to take one of these closing TDs and move it here to close my status. Open up my edit. That looks good to me. And then here's my edit. Close my TD. Okay, so I feel pretty confident about this. The reason that we are adding this department ID for every single row is because that department ID is going to be different for every single row, and I need it to attach and become part of the URL. So again, the most complicated part about this is building out that hyperlink. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and let's see if it works. So here we are on the page, and now I have all of my information with my status and my edit. Now hover over your edit and double check in the bottom corner of your browser that as you hover over, you actually see numbers. So this one says edit department and ID equals 1, and sure enough, that's 1. If I go to the next one, ID equals 5, and that becomes 5. So this is how we're going to set up that first page, and in my next video we'll go ahead and actually build out that edit page so that we can actually perform something on the this table. Okay? Thank you.